take a walk with me, not like you used to do. Do something different and put yourself in other people's shoes. Open up your mind and open up your eyes and change your direction, change your perspective.
Welcome into Other People's Shoes. As you know, I am your host, Neil Matthews. Thank you so much for hitting play today. Now, I know for some of us, when we think of play, we think of all kinds of amazing things, right? We think of competitiveness. We think of the Super Bowl. We think of, well, in my case, I think of the Final Four. That's not the Frozen Four, just to clarify, the Final Four. You know, the one that happened like last March when my beloved Tar Heels took down Mike Krzyzewski and those pesky Blue Devils. But you know what's interesting is, weird segue, my family and I were just in Cancun back in August. I know it seems like just, but really it's been a minute. But while we were there, this merchant tried to sell me a mask that they make. And there's these wooden masks. It's a small story. In the mask, they had a North Carolina logo. And the guy was so excited to sell it to me because I'm sure he doesn't see a lot of North Carolina, Tar Heels stuff coming through his booth. And he noticed my hat had an NC on it. So that's probably what drew his attention. But then on the ground, I noticed, because, he had all of his stuff nicely displayed, ready to sell to people. He had a Duke Blue Devil one. And I was like, oh, buddy, can't have that one. That's the enemy. You don't want to have anything to do with the devil. And I wish I should have had my camera out faster. He literally picked it up, threw it across the ground, and he said, I want nothing to do with that. Now, I say that because today's guest, I think, is going to inspire us and challenge us to start having something to do with this conversation that we need to have more of. And I hope you will help me welcome him in, Alan Smyth. Alan, how are you today?
I'm doing great. And that's funny. You say you're a Carolina fan. I'm looking at on the video feed here, your headphones got the Carolina blue. You're rocking it all the way in the that's all of your wristbands, the cords plugging into your microphone. You go. Okay, up on the wall. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's very confusing for people. They come on and they go, oh, Oregon, great, West Coast. And then they sit with me and they're like, wait, did we just time travel? Did we just change time zones and didn't even realize? Yeah. But Alan, I want to lead off with something. Speaking of that Cancun trip, my family and I were traveling through Salt Lake. I'm tired. We've been traveling all day. I'm washing my hands, doing the right thing in the bathroom. And as I go to leave, this sign caught my attention. And it was in the Salt Lake City International Airport. And it says, if you notice sex trafficking happening, please report it. And here's a phone number. Why on earth would they have that sign up in a men's bathroom, in your opinion?
Because sex trafficking, which is the ownership and commodification, big word, of other people, is a massive problem. And the big aha that most people don't know is when they think about sex trafficking, especially child trafficking, they're thinking about Thailand and Cambodia and some country way over there, 10,000 miles away. And what they don't understand is it's a massive problem right here in our country. Every airport should have it, and every bus stop and every truck stop. It's in all 50 states. It's a massive problem. It's bigger than you think, and it's closer than you think.
I was sharing this with you in the green room, and I don't mind sharing this here publicly too, is I got an opportunity to actually say hello to Rebecca Bender, who is a big advocate, big spokesperson, big megaphone person. We joked, sort of a celebrity. We both kind of joked about that. So thank you, Rebecca, for spending a few moments with me in Medford International Airport, speaking of airports again. I sat with her many years ago. And I was blown away by her story. And I know, you have similar stories of individuals you've walked with. When I'm hearing Rebecca talk and I'm hearing Rebecca say this, I'm like, great. She's a big advocate for women and rightfully so. She walked through a horrific experience. If you don't know that, go back and listen to it. Grab her book, Pursuit of Love. Amazing story. I felt like we had kind of chapter 1, if we're thinking about a book, but we never really had chapter 2 or a follow-up with a guy. Before we go down that road, I want to ask this question. Alan, what size shoes do you wear?
I usually wear about a size 12, actually.
Okay. And is there a certain style or brand you like more than another?
The comfortable shoes I wear, it's a New Balance, kind of a walking shoe. It's not inexpensive. I kind of keep buying the same one because it works for me. That's what I wear usually.
Please tell me it's not the New Balance dad version, the white one. Are you thinking of, okay, it's not that one.
No, I think it's acceptable in most circles. I also have a certain pair of Reebok shoes. I'm currently rehabbing a knee surgery, and so I'm working out with a guy doing stuff, and he wanted me to get a certain kind of shoe for him. So, I'm not picky. I'll wear whatever you give me.
I'm not picky. I'll wear whatever you give me. I wish I could say that. Sadly, I am too picky sometimes and too diva, if in some respects. Right. So there we are. But Alan, I'm so fascinated by this because when I started thinking about this new season, this walk away idea, This idea that people have had a moment or an event where they're like, okay, I'm done. I have to let it go. I have to walk away from it. For you, and again, going back to that Rebecca Bender chapter 1, if we're going into chapter 2 with you, in your opinion, have men walked away from this conversation of sex trafficking?
First of all, I'll just say Rebecca Bender is a really interesting name to drop here because she does tell her story very candidly in her book, and find her online and look her up, follow her on social media. She was a young lady getting trafficked out of small town Oregon. We're not talking the mean streets of Los Angeles or New York City or something. And so that's just one more example to say it's everywhere. Have men walked away from this conversation? I think it's worse than that. I don't think they've ever entered the conversation. You have to first be in a conversation before you can walk away from it. And that's the big aha. That's my lane. That's my calling in life for this stage of my life. I've been given a backstage pass to this horrific crime. I lead an anti-trafficking agency called Saving Innocence. We're up to our eyeballs in child victims and now lately more and more adult victims of exploitation and trafficking. And my big lane, if you will, in this fight is to talk to men directly and challenge them and open their eyes and call them to action. So as soon as enough men can get in the conversation, I don't think they'll walk away as quickly, because you can't. Once you see it, you can't walk away, in my opinion.
And that's what I love about this show, is the idea that we're in your shoes. That's why we always ask that question. So you made reference to my background. I'm going to make reference to yours. You have movie posters behind you, which I think is fascinating. And that's kind of actually how we let off our little green room chatting together. You got Braveheart, you got Gladiator, you got Rocky. Now, those are fictional characters. We all know that. But do we need to have a Braveheart mentality? Do we need to have a Leonidas? I think that's his name. Kind of let's fight Sparta. Rocky, to be candid, I've never actually seen. I know the premise, but I've never actually seen it all the way through. I know. I'm losing fans left and right.
You've never seen Rocky? Any of the Rockies?
No, embarrassingly enough. I know. I
mean, I'm not sure we can even continue this.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I've seen the other two, though.
And you don't know that Braveheart is William Wallace is the key character?
I do. Yes. No, I do. No.
You said Leonidas or something.
Well, Leonidas is Gladiator, isn't he?
Maximus Decimus Meridius.
Oh my gosh. So I'm thinking of Spartan. I'm thinking of 300.
That's okay. I can help you.
Thank you,
you're
Alan.
North Carolina
Wow.
fan. I have no problem with North Carolina, but it's all starting to make sense. Do we need to have that mentality? I don't want a cartoonish fictional version of strong men. I want an authentic version. The tagline in the book that I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute, it says the role of authentic masculinity in ending exploitation and trafficking. What I do like about those movies and those characters, and actually William Wallace was a real character. I'm not sure how closely the movie followed his actual life, but he was a real guy, is they were strong men battling against injustices, pushing up against bullies, fighting for what's right, the underdog, all those kinds of things. Even Rocky Balboa, go watch the movie. Well, there's been about 12 of them at this point, but they're fighting a bigger foe. There's a battle bigger than ourselves out there that I believe men are ready and wanting to step into. And that's what I like about those movies. And that's the attitude that I want men to have. Number one, see the battle, define it, and now step into it, because there are literally millions of vulnerable people enslaved by other people, maybe the greatest injustice mankind has ever invented. We need to figuratively pick up our sword and enter the fight and go get them.
But how do we do that? I mean, practically speaking, because here's where I'm at. Let me just play the other side of the fence for a second. I know it's out there. I mean, obviously I know it's out there. I've met Rebecca. Now I've met you. I know it's happening. I have a 15-year-old young lady just in the other room that I know could fall victim to that. She's in that target market, if you will, for them, I would imagine. Pretty young lady. Everywhere we go, man, your daughter's so pretty. I'm like, yeah. But I say that because I think, it's not going to happen to her. I think, it's somewhere else. Again, I know it happened in Grants Pass. I know that from Rebecca. I know it can happen anywhere. I know that. But what can I do as Neil Matthews? What can I do as a man to say, nope, it's not going to happen on my watch? I don't know. I don't have an analogy for that. I just feel like there's nothing I can do really practically every day to stop it from happening.
And that would be a tragic mistake that most men and most people would come to believe. They think it's farther away than it is. They think it's smaller than it is. And that's part of my message, is that it's not as far away as you think it is, and it's much bigger than it is. The FBI, this is a slightly older stat, but they told us that there's at least 900,000 predators online. Dad of a 15-year-old daughter, I'm guessing she's online and on social media and some of those things, to whatever degree you have her doing that. Well, just know that there's over, at least, I don't know what the real number is, 900,000 a few years ago. The pandemic hit, everybody got forced to be online even more. Millions of predators predators out there trying to lure people in, masquerading as somebody else, showing up on their social media. I'm sure you've raised your daughter to be strong, confident, and aware. And so she's probably not as susceptible as a lot of other kids. A lot of other kids are not strong, not confident, and they're unaware. So number one that you can do as a parent, and as two men here who fathers, you and I, raise our kids to be strong, confident, and aware. It starts at home. And as you look in the mirror, we have to sync our life up with the non-exploitive culture that we want our daughter to grow up in. For a lot of men, that means we have to have an honest conversation about what are the websites we're looking at when no one else is looking at us? What are the jokes and conversations we're having with our friends? Where are we going on a Friday night or any other night? Are we allowing certain music into our home that is exploitive in nature? You know, the song lyrics. What kinds of things are we patronizing? Are we feeding this dark, ugly beast of exploitation? Now, the worst possible example is one person buying another person for some version of twisted sex in a car in a motel room, participating in human trafficking and victimizing vulnerable people in that way. But what I'm trying to do is expand the boundaries much bigger than that and say, look at it, pornography is feeding this ugly, dark beast. Going to strip clubs, doing all those kinds of things are participating in this exploitive culture, and oftentimes they are human trafficking. You just didn't know it. So what can we do? What can you do? Well, if you're doing any of those things when no one's looking, stop doing those. That's number one. Be the right kind of husband, be the right kind of dad, and now go outward from there. And the first sort of outward step is to get a little more educated. And so I encourage all of your listeners. Yeah, we've talked about Rebecca Bender. Get her book, In Pursuit of Love. Go to her website. There's a lot of all-stars out there putting out great content. Go to savinginnocence.org, the organization that I lead. There's videos on there. You can watch survivors telling their stories, get educated. And then I humbly submit to you a book that I partnered and Rebecca Bender contributed to it, and a number of other amazing survivors called Men Fight For Me. And in that book, we break down this horrific crime. Survivors are telling their stories. And then me and my male voice is challenging men to look at it and step into it. And we give tons and tons of practical things you can do today, macro, micro. And so we do lay it out quite a bit in that, but we can break it down and talk more about it. But that's step number one. Be the right kind of man, invite other men into that with you, and get more educated. And follow that trail.
So, Alan, where did it start for you? I mean, because I'm guessing you didn't wake up one day and was like, you know what? I'm tired of watching movies. But what was it for you? What was that moment that you said, you know what? I'm tired of people walking away from this conversation. I'm going to start walking towards that conversation.
I was on the Young Life staff for 25 years. Faith-based nonprofit reaching out to all kids everywhere. And I think it started in a way that I didn't know that it started during that time. Over a decade ago, probably 15 years ago, I was sort of accidentally brought into a little workshop or seminar at one of our Young Life camps. It was all the girls in camp, all high school girls, 200 in the room. Female colleague of mine was leading it. She asked me to come in and give a 10-minute thing on a dad's perspective on value and beauty and worth for these young girls. And I was absolutely blown away. And it happened week after week. The girls' leaders, our counselors, were coming back telling me this is the most significant part of the camp for them was that 10 minutes when they heard from a dad figure, a man, about their worth and their value and their beauty. And it was contradicting all the messages they're told every single day in the media and sadly from their own family, et cetera, et cetera. So that really impressed upon me, wow, there's something here. And these weren't abused, trafficked children. These were regular high school girls from any town, USA, for the most part. And so that really got something going in me. Like I have a voice here. There's something that I have, and I'm not sure I fully understand it, that I can speak life and purpose and value into young girls because they're missing it. They're lacking that. That set the stage for me doing some seminars for dads on how to interact with their daughters, wrote a book called Prized Possession. And that continued me down this path of stepping into all of that for me. Fast forward to about 7 years ago, I stepped away from the Young Life staff after 25 years, and I cold called Saving Innocence. And I'd heard about them the year before. They weren't hiring. There was no job offer. I just cold called and sat down with the founder, said, tell me what you're doing. You got my attention. Child victims of sex trafficking. Heard the 2-hour story on a 1-hour parking meter outside. Yep, I got a parking ticket on day one. And I was in immediately because I had already understood that I have a powerful voice in some way, shape, or form. I'm already a dad of a son and a daughter. I'm already have a protective nature, a Braveheart gladiator nature, I guess, if you will. The conversation continued, and the more I heard, the more I was in. And I left that day and I told her, the founder, Kim, I said, I'm in. I don't know what that means. At least I'll be a little donor for your organization, but I hope we can keep talking about more. And really the moment the walk away moment or the keep you there moment, maybe more like it, or whatever it might be, was getting to know some of these incredible survivors, them telling me, looking me in the eye, telling me their stories of the words of one of my favorite people in the universe, also contributed significantly to our book. She said, when I was 11 years old, I was forced to sleep with between 7 and 15 men every single night at 11 years old. And then she said, by the time I was 12 years old, I'd already been raped 4,000 times. I mean, you just do the math. It's mind-boggling. She was in that life another 3.5 or 4 years. These young ladies largely have never seen a healthy male who wanted the best for them. They've only seen men who wanted the worst for them. Okay, this is my lane. I didn't show up to Saving Innocence thinking I have something of value to add to the human race / young girls. I'd already experienced that. I didn't fully grasp it, but I knew there was something there that was important for all of us men to step into. And now I have the platform and the infrastructure. I mean, I'm not going to be working for Saving Innocence till the day I die. I mean, I hope. I don't know that I cannot be in this work now at this point. I know too much, I've seen too much, and it's my honor and privilege.
And it gives me goosebumps thinking about it. I think that's how the greats start. I think that's how the Martin Luther Kings started. I think that's how the Nelson Mandelas started. I hope one day somebody gets to say the same and put you maybe in that category. That's how the Rosa Parks started. They started by saying, no more, not on my watch. We had a seminar, and my daughter was very young. I want to say she was almost 5 at the time. It's been 10 years now. We had a guy come into our church. He used to work for the FBI, and he was telling us about all the social media and all the ways people try to, trick our kids and all the ways they try to catfish them, which, Manti Te'o just has a documentary out on Netflix right now, which is phenomenal, by the way, how that happened. For those that have not seen that, it's not sex trafficking, but it's just the idea of somebody tricking you into doing something that you shouldn't be doing and hurting you. Alan, when I hear all of this that you're saying, and I hear all of that, I still think, can one person make a difference? And I don't know how you answer that. I don't know. And I feel bad asking that, but I feel like, do you ever feel like there are days where you just kind of throw up your hands and go, we're not holding back the waves. We're still getting wet. We're still getting soaked. We're still getting drenched. I mean, are there days like that?
Of course, we're outgunned by a society that's in a free fall. We're outgunned by millions upon millions of broken men that are going down their selfish, narcissistic path of addiction. We're outgunned by a society in many communities that think it's a better idea to have less police, not better or more police. So there's less people out investigating these crimes, all of the above. And so, yeah, sometimes it does seem overwhelming when we throw a memorial service for a dozen of our kids' children, our minors that were murdered recently because of their affiliation with this environment. I mean, I guess anyone trying to climb a mountain, I suppose, the Bill Gates of the world or whoever, the Amazon guy, I suppose when they first were getting started, it was too big. They would have never envisioned being where they are now because they were just starting in their garage or something like that. And you handle one obstacle, then the next one, you solve one problem, then the next problem, and you keep doing it because it's the right thing to do. You believe it's the right thing to do. And that's my challenge to men. Yeah, this is a big problem. This is it's the fastest growing crime in the world. My urgent message to men specifically, and all people, I'm sure you have a lot of women that listen to your podcast, but again, my special niche, if you will, is that male audience, because we're the problem guys. Most of the buyers are men. Most of the sellers are men. It's on us to fix it. It's our problem. We created it. Now we have to step up and fix it. And my urgent message to men is, we are all part of this problem. That's one. You might say, I'm not going down that dark path of buying sex, and certainly not from a child. Are you kidding me? That's gross. I mean, what do you need? I'm not going to do that. Okay, that's good. I'm glad you're not. It's not a huge percentage of men that are doing all of that, but it's still happening. So we are either actively participating or we're passively allowing it to happen. Someone might say, I'm not allowing it to happen. And then I might say, well, it's happening, and it's happening in your community. So I guess you are allowing it to happen. So you're asking the right question. What can I do? The important thing is to get to that place where someone understands it well enough to do something and then actually do something. Get off the couch, get off the sidelines, get in this fight. There are children and other vulnerable human beings in your community right now being abused in horrific ways. And they're asking someone figuratively, in some cases literally, come help me. And that's what the title of our book called Men Fight For Me. amazing survivor on a stage telling her trauma, says, I gave up. I could no longer fight for myself. I needed someone to fight for me. Oh, that lit me up. I almost stood up in the auditorium and said, I'll fight for you. I'm going to see how many good men I can get that will fight with me. I'm going to see how many podcasts I can get and use their megaphone and their platform. Let's go, guys. Like, if we're not doing this, what are we doing? Okay, you have a job. Great. Go work your job. Provide for your family. You have a few interests. You like North Carolina basketball. Great. Go do your things. Go do the stuff. And now what? Now, there's still some extra time and bandwidth in your heart and your mind and your time and your calendar, most likely. What are you going to fill it with? Mindless crap? Or are you going to actually do something and add value to humanity and do something where there's an actual real need? At the end of the day, we're all going to check out. And it's like, okay, there's going to be an accounting. What'd you do? What'd you do with your life? What'd you do with the talents that you had, the money that you made, the things that you knew? Did you add value or did you take? Did you give or did you take? So yeah, it does seem big. And just before we move on, and I forget to say this, really kind words. I mean, I'm honored that you would say those things about what I'm doing and how I might be thought of it at some point down the road. And so I don't diminish that, but I do really want to say, and not in a self-deprecating way, but the real heroes of this work are these survivors. It's Rebecca and it's others. It's my dear friend I mentioned earlier who probably was sexually violated 20,000 times before her 16th birthday. And she's out now fighting and changing the world in her space. Those are the heroes. And I'm carrying their luggage. I'm the roadie for them. And I don't mean that in a way like, I truly believe it. And I have a role to play. And so do you, whoever's listening right now. We all have a role to play. Go play it. Play that role.
Listen, I think it's well deserved. I do. Because I think so many times, again, I think it takes a spark. It takes an experience to really rock us to our core to say, what am I going to do with that? How am I going to handle that? Now that I know, what will I do with it? And again, I think so many times, I know myself, my hands up. Sometimes I'm very passive. I'm like, one more thing I have to put on my plate. One more thing I have to do. Well, I think what you're suggesting, and I think rightfully so, is okay, look at your life. If we're looking at that plate and we're looking down, we're like, okay, we got the eggs, we got the bacon, we got the sausage, we got the hash brown. What can we take off of our plate to maybe make room for something else? And that's a big mistake. Somebody would say, because I can't do everything, my answer to that is going to be, I'm going to do nothing. That's the tragic mistake. And, William Wilberforce, a British theologian, largely considered one of the main characters that stopped the original transatlantic slave trade back in the day. And he said to his audience, you can choose to look away, but you can no longer say you didn't know. And so my challenge to everyone, and again, the male audience, because again, we're the problem, is to start small and don't not do something because you think it's insignificant. Could you imagine if we got 100 million men doing something small, something quote unquote insignificant? That would all add up to something pretty important. And a lot of those 100 million, or pick whatever number you want, it's going to grow. There's going to get, okay, I can do more. You can add, so you don't even necessarily have to take something off the plate. You can start small, add to it. And if you have to take some off the plate, then I bet you could find some things that aren't as important as recovering and restoring child victims of sex trafficking. I don't want to be judgmental on your calendar, but I'm just saying, I don't know what else you could do that would be more impactful and important to humanity than that. I'm not even saying you have to cancel and take some things off. You can Google the anti-trafficking agency near you. There's something near you. Go to their website or call them. Hey, how many staff do you have that work in this for you? Well, we have 12, or we have 10, or we have 20, we have 5, whatever. Next time you go down to the grocery store, pick up a Starbucks gift card for those 8 staff or whatever it is, a $10 card, whatever you want to do. Send it to them. Write a little note. Thank you for being in this fight. I can't do what you do, but I'm glad you're doing it. We're praying for you, or I'm with you. We're cheering you on. And just send it to them. Everybody can do that. That would be incredible. That's a great first step. Or better yet, just call them. Hey, what do you need? The holidays are coming up. The people you served, are you going to have like a Thanksgiving thing or a Christmas thing? Like, what do you need? And they'll give you some things they need. I guarantee you they need something. They need some stuff. Get some stuff and drop it off to them. You can start there. Everybody can do that. You don't have to cancel one thing. You can watch every sporting event you want to. You can go to whatever movies you want to. You can go on the outings with your own children and take them to the park. You can do all that stuff. Just create a little space to put your big toe in the water and see where it leads. I know for me, I've been involved in a men's group at my church for a lot of years. And the number one question men ask in our group, I want to serve. I want to go and serve people. Like it's such a rewarding thing because they've gotten the bug, to serve, and they've gotten the inspiration to do something. And then a couple of months go by, a couple more months go by, and they're like, man, we haven't haven't really done anything in a while. What a great idea to just do something small. But in the words of Matthew West, do something.
Anything.
I think he has that song, do something. Right?
Pick something.
I created you. Go do something, right? Yeah. So, Alan, I'm curious about this. You mentioned the book. You mentioned, having a little bit of the survivor story in the book, chronicles that. What was the hardest part for you as an author, though? Your portion of the book to write and to create? What was that hard section for you?
That's a great question. I was and am pretty focused and passionate on my message to men. I don't know if that's come through yet in our time together.
It really hasn't. I'm really still kind of like, what is he passionate about?
Yeah. So it wasn't so much what I would say per se. The thing that I struggled with and thought about, and my co-author, Jessica, who's a lived experience expert, we call her. She's a survivor. She tells her story courageously and throughout the book. And from 11 to 21, she was in this crazy upside down culture of trafficking. And what I said to her a number of times, and maybe a few others, like, I just want to get this right. This is an important book. It's an important message. I want to get it right. It's a little bit nerve-wracking when we keep bringing up Rebecca. Rebecca's a great example, and there's a number of others that I know well. I mean, like I think you said, she's like a rock star. She's a celebrity, and she really is. And she has the lived experience to back it up. I didn't come from an abusive background like that. I wasn't ever trafficked or exploited in that way. So in some ways, I'm quote unquote an outsider. It's like, well, who are you to write a book on trafficking? You were never trafficked. No one actually said that to me. That was maybe my own voice. And so I had to battle that in the process and just stay committed. I have a word, I have a message, I have an insight, I have a perspective that's important to the world, to this world. And I kept going. So just the writing part wasn't as hard as just the mind games that I had to overcome in actually writing it in the first place.
For you, what has been the most rewarding part of this whole process for you? Has there been one? I mean, I'm sure there's been multiples, but if you could maybe narrow it down to a few.
Been getting to know these amazing survivors. It's actually seeing my presence as a healthy male. I mean, I could lose a couple pounds, but I mean healthy in a way where I'm not trying to.
It's fine. We all could. It's fine.
In any way abuse these women. And that's weird. They're not used to seeing men that want the best for them, not the worst of them. And just to see that impact, like I can just show up in the room, it feels like, and I'm hearing things like this has been a healing environment. Like it's been a deep experience for a lot of these women, not only the ones that are actual survivors, but even some of our staff. They just haven't seen a man in a way that is helpful, hopeful, building up, not tearing down. That's been really rewarding. Just last week, one of our survivors that's on our staff, younger ladies on our staff, and she goes out and meets with our younger. She calls me because she wanted some advice. Hey, and it wasn't even on the job stuff. It was like something she had to talk to a friend about something important. And hey, I wonder if you could, work this through. Could I ask you some advice? It's like, oh, of course. Let's have that conversation. It was just in that moment, it just happened. It was a really rewarding moment that just my presence in her world and life somehow was something that would be helpful for her in her life. And that's rewarding. Like I said, I was on the Young Life staff for 25 years, massive nonprofit organization, 100 countries around the world. It's been around 80 or 90 years by now. And then I went to a much smaller organization, and it's been rewarding to see it grow and see it flourish in ways they'd never anticipated. Not that it was because of me, but I got to be there when it happened and added some value along the way. So those are a couple things come to mind.
When your daughter sees you in action and she sees dad in his William Wallace, we'll say garb, with your war paint on and you're ready to go to war, maybe you're on stage or you're having an opportunity to speak in front of folks. I would put you in Chavez Ravine, maybe. I don't know if you would even visit there. It's Dodger Stadium for those that are curious.
I am from Northern California, so I'm a Giants fan. Don't tell anybody.
Oh,
don't
all right. Anybody. We won't. Sorry, my bad.
just be between you and I right now. I'm in Dodger country.
So you're in enemy territory in more ways than one.
Behind enemy lines.
Well, I'll put you in Oracle. That's fine. That's what I know it as. Pac Bell,
Good.
whatever it is now. But I mean, if I put you there, I put you on a home plate.
Yeah.
I mean, San Francisco is, I would imagine, a hub.
Sure.
For sex trafficking, just because of the location and the logistics and the water being so close. What would you say to folks? I mean, we pack out that stadium. What would you say to folks in that moment?
Well, it depends who's in that audience. By the way, I do have the William Wallace sword right behind me. The Scottish Claymore is right behind me.
There you go.
Just to keep my mind right. It depends. If it's like some big Promise Keepers men's conference, that's a slightly different message. If it's just the people before a baseball game and it's everybody in between, there's always two buckets. It's It's awareness and action. One without the other isn't really very helpful. So I would call any crowd to awareness, help people understand. And again, depending on who's in the crowd, if it's a living room or a baseball stadium, I'm reading the crowd, understanding their background. I'm going to speak to that as best as I can. And then it's call to action. Again, similar to what we've just been doing here. Get involved, do something. Here's a couple examples. It's important. People are somewhere saying, I needed someone to fight for me. Like, who's going to fight? Let's go. It's time for a battle. And if it's a bunch of men, I would speak to men differently than just a crowd of everybody.
When I think about my legacy as a father,
Yeah.
and I'm in the nursing home, or maybe I'm in the ground, who knows? I don't know. I wonder what she will remember.
Yeah.
I wonder, will she think about the moments of anger that I've had towards her at times, out of frustration. No dad's ever been angry, I'm sure, with their daughter ever. I'm the only one. Can she remember the times of love? Can she remember the times of respect? Can she remember the times that I, built her up and encouraged her? Or will all she remember is the ugly? So I'm curious for you, what do you hope your daughter remembers of you?
Yeah, wow, that's a deep talk, deep conversations here on the Other Shoes podcast. I love it. This is a famous quote from somebody, and I think it's true. People don't remember what you say, they remember how you made them feel. I don't know if that's Maya Angelou or somebody like that said that. So I'm pretty confident your daughter and my daughter, I mean, every dad has stepped out of line once in a while, regrets a certain comment or two. Some have done that a lot and have a lot of ground to make up there. Some others not so much. But I hope that my daughter and my son, and now my daughter-in-law, remember and have fond memories of how much I loved them and how I protected them as best as I could in a way that empowered them to go out and live an adventurous life. My daughter right now is in Europe, a really difficult 10-year job, big job down at the Staples Center, running things down there, sucked the life out of her. It was time for her to quit. She quit her job, a great job, bought a one-way ticket. She's been there for 2 months. She's spending some time with friends, and other times, like right now, she's dotting around Italy by herself and, going to all these amazing things, sending us great pictures. She's kind of like resetting and just trying to figure out who she is. I'm really proud of her for doing something so courageous and adventurous and fun. It's a great time in life for her. I hope that she remembers and thinks of me as someone in her cheering section. I'm president of her fan club. No matter where she is, what she's doing, I'm with her. I'm joined at the hip in that way. And I think that's a gift we can give our children. This world, this life, social media, the media in general, people out there, it's almost like their sole job is to tear other people down, maybe so they can feel better about themselves. And so if nothing else, moms and dads, let's be those people that are lifting up, empowering, encouraging our kids. And that's what they're going to remember. They're going to remember that.
Well, yeah, I think there's so much value in that. And I love that you said, you're the president of her, her fan club, which I think is just awesome. Awesome to hear as a dad. We've talked about some positive things. I feel like we've talked about some practical steps. We've talked about some real easy ways to get involved. Small ways, but could be big ways, down the way, depending on what you want to get involved and how you want to get involved or how someone wants to get involved. But for you, if I were to give you Jeff Bezos money, which I think he's in the billions now with a B, contributed to that probably every week or every other week of buying something on Amazon.
Oh yeah, of course.
For me, when I think about that, money doesn't buy happiness, but money sure can help a whole lot of folks. If I somehow gave you his checkbook and I said, Alan, here you go. Money, again, doesn't solve everything or make everything better, but it sure does help. What would you do with that type of money?
I don't know, a couple months ago, the lottery was up to $1 billion, the Powerball or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I remember that. Yes.
Every year, every couple years, and it gets to be like $1 billion. I'll buy a few tickets while I'm getting gas, and I don't think I'm going to win, but some idiot's going to win. So I'll be the idiot. I'll be that idiot. But if nothing else, it gives me a day to dream and fantasize. Well, what would I do with $1 billion or 900 million, whatever? I don't know what the take home is.
My wife and I figured it out. It was about 700 million.
Okay.
So after taxes, everything was said and done. It was roughly about 700 million. We rounded it up just to make it a nice, easy number to remember.
On a fixed income of 700 million. Squirrel away a little chunk, just to kind of take care of the family. And then most of it, okay, now what are we going to do? I get my family together. We've talked about this, my 3 adult children, 2 and a daughter-in-law, and we create a little family thing, and our job now would be to go change the world as much as we can with the 650 million or whatever it is that's left over. In order to fix this problem, you're right. Money doesn't fix everything, and it doesn't fix the most important things, but it does fix some things. Money would fix some things in a broken world. In my lens, these trafficking victims, I would create sustainable income and revenue for the organizations that are doing great work but struggling to fund themselves. So I'd create some kind of legacy foundation that would help fund organizations that are out boots on the ground doing the work. I would make sure that I created job opportunities and training opportunities, because one of the biggest gaps, a child who's been trafficked their whole life, they've lost their teenage years, and now they're 21 years old or something. They didn't get much schooling, if any. They had no stable household teaching them basic skills of basic checkbook, credit card, what's a credit score. They missed out on all of that, and they have no bankable skills in terms of stuff that they can do other than what they learned on the streets, which actually is significant if you can translate that. So I would want to create a robust life skills, job skills training program, and I would create job opportunities specifically for survivors. I'd create businesses where we're only going to employ these survivors, and it's going to be like a year-long internship where they're going to learn how to work and learn the things they can do and go on. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but it'd be empowering these survivors. It'd be financially empowering groups that are going out and getting these survivors. If I need to make a political contribution to somebody who will change the laws for the better, I might support their campaign if they would promise me they're going to do things on a macro picture. That's some things that come to the top of my mind.
You mentioned political. Now, here's the thing. I'm not a political show.
Right.
I'm going to steal from Alan Jackson a little bit. I still don't think I could tell you the difference between Iraq and Iran.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're a donkey. I don't care if you're an elephant. I don't care if you're red. I don't care if you're blue.
Right.
At least be the right blue. I will care about that. But here's where I'm at. Our government, our world is severely screwed up. I think anybody you talk to, it doesn't matter what aisle they sit on or what political party, again, affiliation they're a part of. We all recognize something's not right. That picture, Picasso, doesn't look right. But on that level, I don't really feel like I hear a lot of folks really beating that drum or banging that cymbal for sex trafficking. I hear a lot about other stuff that I feel like we don't need to care about as much. Again, not to get political. I hear a lot about global warming. I hear a lot about gas prices. I hear a lot about supply chain. I hear about all these things but what about the people? Why do you think that is? Why do you think sex trafficking isn't on the forefront, front page news as much? I feel like it's not even page 6, because that almost seems like it's still kind of relevant. But why do you think that is?
That's a really great question. There's a lot of different answers to it. And this part of my life is not political at all. And it grieves me to no end. Certain important humanitarian issues, life issues that have been deemed political, and they're not political. But some political party on one side or the other has claimed it for their own. And that drives me crazy, because it's excluding a lot of people from the conversation because they define themselves as a political party. And there's things that aren't political, shouldn't be political. So having said that, why is it? And we do talk about it in our book. That's one of the things we talk about in terms of who to vote for, things to listen for. I would say it becomes a litmus test for who gets your vote in their campaign speeches and in their debates and their platforms. Are they doing things to push against this crime? And more people and at that level are thinking about it and saying it. Why isn't it? Why aren't the rich and powerful fighting against it more vigorously? Lots of the rich and powerful are actually involved in it on the dark side of this. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It makes more money than the NBA, the NFL, and Major League Baseball combined in a year. Global sex trafficking. A lot of the customers, a lot of the facilitators are rich and powerful. You probably saw the documentary, Jeffrey Epstein thing, his island. The manifest is full of rich and powerful people. You got members of the royal family from Britain. You got former past U.S. presidents on that island and everywhere in between. So you don't know everybody's name. Like, you don't recognize everybody, but they are rich and powerful people. The other part of that answer is the people in political positions are there representing the people that voted for them. And the people that voted for them are defining what's important to them. Otherwise, they don't get voted in. So it starts not with the politician. It starts with the person in the community. All politics is local. Somebody said that. And so it's platforms like this and others, and the more articles and documentaries and more community activism, the more that people are understanding what's happening, they're going to be voting for people that they're going to do what's important to them. Well, here's what's important to us in this community, in this county, in this state, in this city, in this country. You need to support these things. Until the people rise up and say that, they're not going to do it. They're not going to get involved because it's a little messy. It's a very unsavory conversation. Hey, we're going to have a town hall chat and we're going to talk about children in your community that are raped, 12 times a night. Who wants to go to that meeting? And what elected official with some kind of a jurisdiction, whether it's a law enforcement or a congressperson or a mayor or whatever, is willing to go on the record and say, we have a real problem in the part of this society that I'm in charge of. Children are being bought and sold for sex right here. It could be your child next. Who's going to say that? No one's going to say that. They'd rather talk about the new shopping mall they're going to get approved and it's going to bring more jobs in. That's something I want to hear about. I don't want to hear that our kids are at risk, that predators are roaming the streets and the internet in my community. It doesn't sell, for lack of a better phrase. That's part of it. All these things contribute. If you really look at this crime, like if you honestly look at it, then you're going to be compelled to do something about it. You can't look at it and not be moved in some way. Your heart, your mind, your soul. And most people are comfortable. They want to remain comfortable. It's a systemic societal problem. We want what's comfortable to us. We want what's safe and comfortable for us in my little cocoon. And there's a dark, ugly, hurting, violent world just beyond. And some people kind of know about it. They suspect it, but they haven't brushed up against it and they don't want it to come too close to them. Those are some of the things that come to my mind. Why don't more people talk about it? Well, either they're involved directly in it or they'd rather talk about something more comfortable because they get more likes and clicks and they get more votes if they do that.
I think that's so sad in so many respects. Just absolutely heartbreaking. So I found this quote. I think it might resonate with you, and then we're going to do some silliness.
Okay.
So I know we've had some serious, so it's kind of good to have some silliness perhaps. So stay tuned for that. They attribute Thomas Jefferson to saying this. So I don't know if he said it or not, but they give him credit. It says, evil triumphs when good men do nothing. Yeah. What do you think Thomas Jefferson meant when he said that? Now, I know you're not Thomas Jefferson, but maybe get into his shoes, whatever size they were, or his buckle shoes. They probably had those kind of Puritan buckle shoes, whatever those were called.
I actually quote that in our book, and I don't know if we said this. It's not a shameless plug. I do believe in this book, but go to fightforme.net. It's a little website we created. I'm sure you have it in your show notes. And there's these survivors, Rebecca Bender's in there, and other survivors that have their resources. It's a place to get the book. And I quote that quote, although now I'm drawing a blank on the spot here. It wasn't Thomas Jefferson. Maybe it's a slightly different, or one of them quoted the other, but it says, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing, is the quote that I have. And there's also another quote, similar, kind of a sister quote from Albert Einstein, right? The smartest guy to ever live. He says, the world is a dangerous place, but not because of the men who do evil. It's because of people who don't step up and stop them. That's why the world is a dark, hurting, broken, evil place, because people don't step in that gap and confront the men with evil deeds. So it's a similar quote to Thomas Jefferson or whoever originally said that. I think it's true. And that's the call to action. We need to step up and confront. We have to acknowledge that there's a darkness, there's an evil, there's a predator, and they are predators. And then we need good people to step up and confront them. And the only thing necessary for that triumph of the enemy is for us to just stay complacent, sit on the couch, watch something on Netflix, go coach a little league team, and turn a blind eye to what's happening right in our midst.
Yeah, I just think, again, it's such a powerful statement to think about and to really focus on. So, Alan, we talked about the book. Where can folks go to get it? And how can people continue this conversation with you? What's the best way they can do both things?
Yeah, it's for sale on Amazon. You can just type in Men Fight For Me. It'll pop up there. But as I mentioned a second ago, we've created a little website. I encourage everyone to take one more step. Go to fightforme.net. About 5 different ways to buy the book from there on that website. But more than that, there's contributors, there's other resources, things that will help you in this conversation and learning and your educational process. Buy the book, read the book. Proceeds benefit survivors of trafficking. I can unapologetically say, buy a case of these books. I got an email from a guy recently. He said, I just bought 25 books. I'm going to pass them out at my church. I said, great. And whatever proceeds there might be are going to benefit these amazing survivors that are in the book. So do that. That will help. You can get a hold of me on that website, fightforme.net. There's a little contact me button, and then you can send me an email. I'm also on social media. You can find me Alan Smyth, or Smith Allen is my Instagram name. Fight For Me Book is on social media. We post things related to the book specifically, Instagram, Facebook, at Fight For Me Book. Look us up at savinginnocence.org and poke around there and watch some videos, and you can get a hold of us that way as well.
Now, Alan, we didn't really talk about this. You're kind of a little older than I am, I think, right?
I think so. Yeah. Judging from what I'm looking at my screen right now. Yeah.
So I'm 42. You don't have to say how old you are if you don't want to, but but I'm 42. So maybe as you've gotten older, maybe you've forgotten some things in life. Maybe, I'm guessing.
That's a fair bet.
All right,
yeah.
fair bet. All right, safe bet even. So there's one more place they can go. We're going to put it under a little tab on our website called Books That I Love.
Okay.
Going to be towards the top, and we're going to link an ability to go straight to whatever site you want us to.
Great.
To do that as well. So if folks didn't get all that written down, and
Yep.
maybe some people don't look at the show notes, which you should every now and then. There's some valuable stuff there. They can also do that. So under Books That I Love, so OPS Podcast / Books That I Love, they can find it there as well. All right, so
Awesome.
some silliness. You ready for some
Okay.
silliness? All right, we like to
Let's
end the
go.
show with some silliness. Now, had I known you'd been a Giants fan, I could have gotten my Giants mug from the kitchen, but
Okay.
I didn't know that. So sadly,
Yeah.
we have to use the North Carolina Cup. Sadly.
Something tells me you only have North Carolina cups. You don't have a Giants cup.
No, I really
That's
do. I will send you said picture.
Okay.
I'll have to find the mug. It's probably way
Yeah.
in the back. I grew up a Will Clark fan. Like right behind me, there's a Will Clark magazine from when they honored the 89 World Series team. So there you go.
They just retired his number, I think, or something. They had a big ceremony.
They did. Yeah, they had a big ceremony. Barry was there. It was quite the shindig. I did not get my VIP pass, so Giants organization, I don't know, maybe got lost in the mail. I bring this cup up to you because it once sat on a shelf in the studio, and you can kind of see there's this white kind of line there. It fell off the shelf and literally split in half. So it's quite literally a broken vessel now.
Okay.
But it's amazing what can happen with a broken vessel when it gets healed again.
Yeah.
True silliness can take place, and true healing can even take place. There is life after brokenness.
Great.
I don't know.
I agree.
I don't know if that's
I love
a great segue or not, but there it is. All right, little silliness. It's called Senseless, and it's these silly questions that we ask just kind of at the end of the show. You don't have to answer all of them, so don't worry.
Okay.
You only get one, and it's a random silliness question. So here it is. Again, Senseless. I'm going to roll for you. In enemy territory. I love that you said that, by the way. It is number 4.
Okay.
Maybe this will make you think of your work. I don't know. We'll see. Here we go. So our silliness question for Senseless is this. Number 4 is, when you hear this sound, it always makes you smile. When you hear this sound, it always makes you smile.
Oh gosh, when I hear the sound, it always makes me smile. I'm gonna say the voice of I've referred to it a number of times. The dear friend of ours who says that between 11 and 15, 12 to 15 times every night, all that. She is so fun and so much life and so funny and loud. She'll take over the room and just. 2 days ago, I got a little voice memo on my phone. She was just funny. She's a very funny and joyful and vivacious young lady. So when I hear her voice, I hear the sound of her voice. That makes me smile.
But again, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it, man.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me and sharing me with your listeners.
Absolutely. It was our pleasure. So guys and gals, kids and campers alike, that is it. That is all. That is our show today. But before we go, I want to call your attention to something that didn't come up in our little chat with Alan. And that's this boxer guy. Maybe you've heard of him, Muhammad Ali. Now, I know some are just like, okay, whatever, checked out. Like, I'm not into boxing. I don't care about Muhammad Ali's political views or what he stood for, any of that. We're going to set all that aside for just a quick second. His record, by the way, Googled this for you. He was 56 wins and 5 losses. The man only lost 5 times in his whole career. 5 times. So I want to ask you a question. What are your 5 losses? If you could go back and look at them again and think, man, I really blew it there. I blew it there. I blew it there. I blew it there. I blew it there. 5 times. You could look at your hand and say that. But I'm often reminded when we look at our hand and we look at what's in our hand that we can do something about it. Now, I'm not asking you to just quit your job, become a monk, just stop everything that you're doing and go join this fight. I think what Alan said is so profound. Start small. What can you do? I don't know about anybody else. When I lose, it sucks. It's the worst. I hate the feeling. I don't care if it's a card game. I don't care if it's hopscotch. I don't care what it is. I don't like losing. And I feel like right now in our world, we are losing so many amazing people to addictions, to sex trafficking, to all of this. And so my question is who's going to join the fight? Your phone's ringing. Are you going to ignore it? Or are you truly going to answer it and take the call seriously? And what are you going to do with your hands? How can your hands go and help today? Just think about that as we wrap up today. And also, do not forget about this. Please don't. Remember, when you walk in other people's shoes, you really do get a different perspective on life. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned till next week when we walk in other people's shoes.